Hello and a very warm welcome to an India Today special broadcast. I'm Gaurav Sawant. Is the United States of America ready to send a woman to the White House as the president, the first woman supreme commander of the United States of America? Or will Donald Trump return to the White House and, as he says, make America great again? Over the course of the next half hour, we get you all details because the latest information that we are getting, and we are getting you the latest from the 7 swing states that will decide the future of the United States of America. Voting underway in the United States of America. Voters in the process of sealing the fate of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Over 80 million voters have cast the early ballot. Alaska, last to cast votes. Philadelphia begins counting of in-mail ballots, and this is what makes these elections extremely interesting. The elections in the United States of America currently underway. The 7 swing states, they play a very critical role in these elections. Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada are the 7 swing states. Now, in the United States of America, it's all about getting the 270 electoral college votes. Who is able to get those first? And this election, as all analysts are predicting, is too close to call. In a short while from now, Donald Trump will be casting his ballot. It's in Florida. We are told Kamala Harris has already done so. So, how do things stand as of now? The analysis is Kamala Harris with 247 and Donald Trump with 246 electoral college votes. Remember, that magic figure is 270. So too close to call right now. The battleground states, the swing states, Georgia, 16 electoral college votes. North Carolina, 16. Pennsylvania, 19, and all eyes on Pennsylvania. Michigan, 15. Wisconsin, 10. Arizona, 11. Nevada, 6. So will Kamala Harris enter the White House? Will she create history, becoming the first woman ever to be the US president? Or will it be Donald Trump once again after a gap of 4 years? And 7 swing states will decide this aspect. Of the 50 states in the United States of America, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, these are the battleground states. And in just about 10 hours from now, the situation will start getting clearer. If you were to look at the Eastern Standard Time, so Georgia, the first results should be out by 7 p.m. EST. North Carolina, 7:30 p.m. Michigan, 8 p.m. Pennsylvania, 8 p.m. Arizona, 9 p.m. Wisconsin, 9 p.m. and Nevada, 10 p.m. The 7 battleground states. In the next 10 to 12 hours, the situation will be very clear. Over 80 million voters have already cast early ballot. Alaska, of course, last to cast votes. Philadelphia begins counting of the in-mail ballots, and this is what makes these elections extremely interesting. Too close to call. And just before we came for this bulletin, I want to tell you the latest information that's coming in about how close these elections are to call. If you were to look at some of the surveys, the NBC survey, 49%, both for Donald Trump and for Kamala Harris. Real Clear Politics, 48.5%. So this election is that close to call. We are getting a lot of reaction from Indian American voters. A lot of information that's coming in. Are they excited? You know, the first question, how's the Josh when it comes to this voting? And Rohit Sharma with this report.
We're currently at a voting center here, and this is how Americans are voting here. You can see there's a queue. You see some Indian American voters who are also here to vote, and this is where you come in and you vote. People are queuing up. There's a line for voting. We've seen a lot of people earlier in the morning that have come to vote, but as you can see, it's probably getting into lunch hour, and people are getting in line to vote here. So these are exclusive pictures for India Today and Aaj We are here at the election center in Fairfax, Virginia, and people are voting. And that's where you basically go and they check your ID. You stay in a queue, and these sort of small made cubes is where you go get your ballot and you go ahead and vote in the EVM. We have an Indian American voter with us who is going to be voting in this election. Indian American voters have been chased by both the Republican and Democrats. They've been wanting to get Indian American voters out, and this election is very closer. I know you're about to go in to get vote. What is the most important issue for you when you go ahead and cast your vote?
Actually, this tax cut is very important for me, so that's why I'm going to vote for that.
आप यहाँ पे अमेरिकन सिटीजन है, आपको क्या लगता है कि आम यहाँ के जो लोग हैं, वो लोग आपको क्या लगता है किसी की कोई वेव चल रही है एक कैंडिडेट की, ऐसा लगता है आपको कि शायद ट्रम्प का जो है वो भारी है?
मुझे लगता है ट्रम्प का भारी है.
And let me take you straight to Florida. Former US President and the Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, he's just cast his ballot along with Melania Trump. And his lawyers have spoken to India Today. Rudy Giuliani. Now, he says the Democrats are capable of cheating. That's already a grave charge to level. He says if Kamala Harris wins, they will put Donald Trump behind bars. A lot of reactions that are coming in. Listen into those reactions. I'll get you much more on this big story.
Are they capable of cheating? Of course they are. If they win the case against me and the case against Trump, we go to jail for the rest of our lives. So I'm a proud American who did it to save my country from a criminal. I do it all over again. I do everything I did all over for the sake of my country.
Molly, how are you feeling this morning? You know, I know no points guessing who you're going to be voting for and rooting for this election night. How are you feeling this morning about Trump's chances?
You know, I'm very optimistic, assuming it is an honest election and only actual votes are counted and they're not manipulated. I think he has a lot more support than people may realize.
You know, there's something interesting there. I want to zoom in here and show everybody. You have a picture of Donald Trump. This is right after there was an assassination attempt on him. Is this to remind people that he took a bullet for some of his voters?
Yeah, I think it's to remind people that he's willing to fight for this country, which is more than we can say for his opponent. You know, she's willing to send people to fight and then leave them there to rot like she did in Afghanistan. And she's willing to send U.S. weapons and money to Ukraine, and she's willing to allow fighting to continue without really successful diplomacy in the Middle East.
So this election is too close to call. Both sides trying to get their voters out even at the 12th hour. It's beyond the 11th hour. Voting's already underway. Elon Musk has actually gone to the extent of saying, go out and vote as if your life depends on it. So this last-minute pitch trying to get voters to vote. Many questions. Who will win? Who's better for India? Joining me on this special broadcast is Ambassador Kamal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary of India, and Seema Sirohi is a columnist who joins us from the United States of America, somebody who's traveled extensively to see how America is voting. And Seema, how's the josh amongst the voters today and in the run-up to these elections? Who are they more excited about voting? What's your initial impressions?
I think this is one of the most consequential elections in America. The voter enthusiasm and turnout is off the charts for both parties. But, it'll depend on the ground game at the end of the day, where the Democrats just have a much better program on the ground because they have been at it consistently. The Republicans and Donald Trump campaign kind of neglected that aspect until Elon Musk stepped in and said, I'll pay people to go and knock on doors and things like that. But see, the point is, when you get paid workers compared to volunteers who actually feel for the candidate or the party, it's a different thing. Democrats have been knocking on thousands of doors per minute in battleground states, while the Republican game is little off. So I think that could be crucial. The gender gap is very important in this election. Whether Kamala Harris gets more women to the polls than Trump gets men to the polls. So he's doing better with younger men in all demographics, Black Americans, of course, white Americans, even Latino, even Indian Americans. A slice of the young Indian Americans are leaning towards Trump. Now, but it's very interesting, the poll in Iowa, which sort of showed Kamala Harris in lead, which is a red state, at this late stage. And people are saying that it's because of the women. The women are what used to be called soccer moms are now soccer grannies, and they just are very agitated about the abortion issue. And maybe Trump campaign underestimated that. So the battle will be economic issues versus the women's issues, and who gets more people to the polls.
Interesting you should mention that, because Ambassador Sybil, the manner in which Elon Musk had to come out and say, vote as if your life depends on it. He's asking men to come out and vote in larger numbers, and Seema's just explained that women en masse appear to be voting for Kamala Harris, and not just, whether it's African-American women or Latina or Asian women, white women. It just appears that unless more men go out and vote, is it a lost or a losing battle for Donald Trump? Your appreciation, sir? And do you think we'll have clear answers by tomorrow, or is it too close to call?
Look, for Americans who are voting for what is a national election, all that you have mentioned is very important. The country is highly polarized. There is a great fear amongst the Democrats that if Trump becomes president, he will start settling scores with the Democrats. And the Trump camp feels the opposite. But for us sitting here in India, these details are interesting in the sense of following the trend and trying to put our finger on the pulse of what is happening. But at the end of the day, what is relevant to us, what is important to us, what is meaningful to us is whoever wins, what will be their policy towards India, and what will be their policies on issues which affect India.
Give me a moment. Donald Trump is about to speak. Give me a moment. It's a slightly hazy feed that I'm getting from Florida. These are live images that are coming in. Let's try and listen in to Donald Trump.
Well, I hear, I don't know, the people you mean, numbers of people, a lot of people. They'll be at the convention center at Mar-a-Lago. We have a lot of people. I've just been very honored to find out that the lines are long, and the conservative lines, the Republican lines are very long. We got back pretty late last night, and it was an honor. It was a great honor. We had 4 incredible rallies and left Michigan late at night. Many of you were with us, and I hear we're doing very well. We did a great job in that we brought it back to the states, as you know. I believe in exceptions, as Ronald Reagan did. And we did a great job. We did something that they've wanted to do for 52 years. Yes, please.
Mr. President, if you win, there are tens of millions of Harris supporters who will be upset. What would your plan be to reach out to those people, bring them in? What would your message be?
Well, it'll be just that. We want to bring everybody in. We want to be very inclusive, and we will be very inclusive. We have a great country, but we have a country that's in trouble. It's in big trouble in many ways. and we have to straighten it out. We have crime is through the roof. We have people pouring through our borders that are not exactly perfect. They come out of prisons. 13,000 people convicted of murder. We don't need this in our country. We have enough difficulty. We don't need that. So I think people saw that, and it just seems that the conservatives are voting very powerfully. Just finish it up. No, I feel very confident. I have felt. You know, we went in with a very big lead today, and it looks like Republicans have shown up in force. So we'll see how it turns out. But it seems that they have really shown up in force. I just got a call from Dan Patrick in Texas. He said they've never seen anything like it. It's been very good. Look, regrets. You always have regrets. I can't think of any, to be honest, to use her expression. I can't think of any. I ran a great campaign. I think it was maybe the best of the three. We did great in the first one. We did much better in the second one, but something happened. And this was the best. I would say this was the best campaign we ran.
Do you accept the possibility that you and Vice President Harris both might not get to 270 electoral votes by the end of tonight?
It should never happen. A thing like that should never happen. This election should be over. They spend all this money on machines. And frankly, if they'd use paper ballots, it would be over by 10 o'clock. And by the way, the paper ballots would cost 8%. Would be 8% of the cost. If they would use paper ballots, voter ID, proof of citizenship, and one-day voting, it would all be over by 10 o'clock in the evening. It's crazy. They use these very expensive computers, and I'm hearing in Pennsylvania they won't have an answer till 2 or 3 days from now. I think it's an absolute outrage if that's the case. Now, maybe it'll be later, but it's paper ballots in France. They went paper ballots because the mail-in was not working. It was corrupt. And in France, they went paper ballots. And at 10 o'clock in the evening, they had 37 million votes counted and done. They had a winner, they had a loser. And in this country, I mean, I'm just hearing that in certain states, it's going to be a long time, and it won't even be close. It won't even be that close. They say, I'm going to win the state, but it's going to take a long time to certify it.
Could you see a world where you don't declare victory tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing the same things that you're hearing. I'm hearing states where I'm up by a lot, but they won't have a final number for a long time.
What are your plans for tonight in terms of watching the results and so forth?
So we're going to have a very special group of people, many of whom you know, and they'll be at Mar-a-Lago. In addition, we'll have 4,000 or 5,000 people at the convention center. On the assumption I win, I mean, I don't know if something else happens. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of declaring victory, but if in normal times I would go over to the convention center, let's say at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or something, but I just don't know. It looks like we have a very substantial lead. It looks like we have many more Republicans voting today than Democrats, so if you have a lead and we have a bigger vote, that means you're doing very well, but they have to call a winner. They should, and they should call a winner, yes. Just stop talking about that. Go ahead. Oh, I don't know. I was honored to get Joe Rogan last night. I mean, Joe Rogan's a big deal. He's a very respected person. And I must tell you, Megan was fantastic. She got up and said some things that were really pretty amazing. But before that, I just think we ran a good campaign. I had good policy. We want people to come into our country, but they have to come in legally. You know, we want strong borders, and we want people to come in. We want to be totally inclusive, but they have to come in. I think that was a big issue. To me, that was the biggest issue. I may be wrong. You know, a lot of people said inflation. Inflation's a disaster, but I think it's a second issue. I think the first is the border. We can't allow criminals to be put back into our country or to be put into our country. So you have 13,000 plus murderers allowed to roam in our country. Not going to be allowed. They have to go. You have drug dealers. You have terrorists. You have a tremendous amount of people that should not be in our country. And We need strong borders in this country, and I think people are voting in. I think it's the number one issue. We'll see how it pans out, but I think it's the number one issue. I don't have to tell them that. I don't have to tell them that there'll be no violence. Of course there'll be no violence. My supporters are not violent people. I don't have to tell them that. And I certainly don't want any violence, but I certainly don't have to tell. These are great people. These are people that believe in no violence. Unlike your question, you believe in violence. Go ahead. Well, I think I'll be at Mar-a-Lago for the most part. We have a lot of political professionals. I'm going over now with Melania, who I'm very proud of. She's got the #1 bestseller. Can you believe that? He can believe it. But so we're very proud of the job she's done with that. Her book is #1. But we're going to go over to the office in West Palm, and we're going to say hello to the workers. They've worked very hard.
Will Georgia kind of be your first indication of whether it's going to be?
I think so. I mean, I hear we're doing very well there in Georgia. I hear we're doing very well. I hear we're doing very well everywhere. Now, I may regret that statement, but I'm hearing that we're doing very well. Would you go louder? No, I haven't prepared a speech. No, I did speeches last night, all day long, all night long. At 2:00 in the morning, we left, and we did a lot of speeches. You can probably tell. No, I don't have to do that. You know, I'm not a Democrat. I'm able to make a speech on pretty quick notice. If I win, I know what I'm going to say, and I don't even want to think about the losing part. I would like to tell all of the people that are online to stay online. We have tremendous Republican lines, and I've been asked actually to say it. It takes a while. I'd like to just make the statement that I'd like the Republicans to stay online. Democrats, if they'd like, they can leave. But I'd like the Republicans to stay online. I have no pressure whatsoever. I'm winning big cases. Those cases are all being won. The biggest case was the Florida case, and it's been won. I appreciate your nice question.
Sir, you and Mrs. Trump have been doing
no
this
pressure whatsoever.
For 9 years. Regardless of what happens tonight, is this your last campaign? Are you done after this?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so.
How do you feel about it?
Sad, and very fulfilled. I think we're going to have a very big victory today.
Mrs. Trump, how are you feeling?
Very good, thank you. Thank you.
If you win, sir, if you win, do you have a plan in place to start naming staff and cabinet officers?
We're already a transition team. But I don't like talking about that until I find out how we do. I mean,
So how does this sort of threats from Iran and sort of assassination attempts sort of shape your thinking on stuff, right?
well, it doesn't. Look, we're not looking to do damage to Iran, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. So, my terms are very easy. They can't have a nuclear weapon. I'd like them to be a very successful country, but they just can't have a nuclear weapon.
Does it change the way you live? All the threats?
Well, I think Secret Service has been a little bit tougher, to put it mildly. I see more machine guns than I've ever seen in my life. We're surrounded by, I feel very confident with Secret Service. I think they've stepped up. Look, for a long time, they didn't give us the help. They didn't give us the assets, as they say, the manpower, woman power. They didn't give it to us. And we'd have rallies. You saw the rallies, 50, 60,000 people. And I'd have less people than Joe Biden, who had 5 people show up. And I'd have 55,000 people show up, and I had fewer people than him. So they should have done a much better job. And frankly, the president should make a very strong statement to the outside world. Because
how are you feeling about your team as you head into the last day?
I think my team is incredible. Look, they say it's the best run campaign they've seen. Some people said it's the best run campaign they've ever seen. But in order to make that stick, you have to win.
How do you feel compared to your past campaigns? Are you more confident now than you were about your team than you were in the last 2 races?
My team, I'm very confident in. Many of them are the same players. As you know, Susie, a lot of the people are the same players. They've been very good.
Mr. President, Oprah said at Harris's rally last night, quote, if we don't show up tomorrow, it is entirely possible we won't be able to count the ballot again.
Well, I think it's ridiculous. You know, Oprah, I was on her last show or one of her last shows, and they picked the biggest people and all of that and made a big deal. And I'm disappointed. I think Oprah's become a major divider in our country. And I think, frankly, she should be ashamed of herself. And you know who else should be ashamed? Fox. Because I've seen Oprah on Fox about 50 times making the same statement. And I think it's a disgrace what Fox does, because everyone thinks Fox is so pro-Trump. They're not pro-Trump at all. They've put Oprah on all morning long. That's all I see is Oprah. And, you know, I knew Oprah very well. She's been in Mar-a-Lago many times. Roger King had his funeral. That's the head of King World, which was Oprah's mentor. And Oprah chose the location. She said, Mar-a-Lago is the most beautiful place. Would it be possible to have Roger's funeral at Mar-a-Lago in the ballroom? We did it. The only time I've ever had a funeral there. And I think Oprah should be ashamed of herself to say that. She should be ashamed. She knows me. She wanted to run with me as the vice president. She was going to be the vice president. She wrote me a letter. It's in the book. And now she goes and makes statements like that. She's a divider. And Barack Hussein Obama is a divider, too.
There are people who are concerned that you didn't concede the election in 2020 when you lost. They're concerned that if you lost this election, you wouldn't concede again. What do you say to those people?
I think they're crazy. If I lose an election, if it's a fair election, I'd be the first one to acknowledge it. And I think so far, I think it's been fair. I think there's been a lot of court cases. Both sides are lawyered up. Thousands of lawyers are involved, thousands, can you imagine? And part of that is because we have too complicated a process. If we had a piece of paper, watermarked, you know that paper is more sophisticated now than computers. It's watermarked paper. It's unbelievable what happens with it. There's nothing you can do to cheat. And it costs you practically nothing to run. Think of it. We spend hundreds of millions and billions of dollars on these campaigns. You could do it for 8% of the cost and have accuracy, and we wouldn't have to be worried about when is Pennsylvania going to announce. It's really a shame.
Last question.
Well, he knows exactly what, but that's only based on what RFK told. I don't think RFK wanted that. You're talking about Health and Human Services. Let me tell you, he's a great guy, RFK, and he's going to do pretty much what he wants as far as I'm concerned. He wants health for women, for men, for children, and I happen to agree with a lot of the things he says. The one thing I told him, and I've told you in speeches for the last 2 weeks, we got to keep him away from the liquid gold, because the liquid gold, we have more than any of it. It's called oil and gas. That one I'm going to handle. Well, I'd be honored to have him. No, I haven't spoken to Howard about that, but look, if you think of it, he came in third, in running for president, right? He ran a very good race. He had obstacles. The Democrats just really unfairly put obstacles up, and Hensor Kennedy left the Democrat Party for the Republicans. Now, he's a very smart guy. He's a very caring guy. He's very popular, too. We get up and introduce him. The place goes wild. No, we love having him. And you know who else we love having? Elon. He's been great. And everybody. Look, everybody. Getting Joe Rogan last night and Megyn Kelly. This is very inclusive. This is a movement. This is the greatest political movement in the history of our country. And even you people, and some of you are fair sometimes, but it's the greatest movement in the history of our country, and I've made that statement 1,000 times. It has never been challenged. It is the greatest movement, and we're going to make America great again. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. This way. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
So Donald Trump there, you heard Donald Trump. He says, I'm very confident that I have the lead. Larger number of Republicans are coming out to vote. Seema Sirohi and Ambassador Kamal Sibal with me in a moment. We'll also be joined by my colleague Rohit from the United States of America. But Seema, your first take on what Donald Trump just said. Is he confident or is he apprehensive that something could still happen between now and results? And he fears perhaps some kind of jiggery-pokery with the ballot?
I think he's just tired. The age factor is coming into play, but he's right about reminding everybody about Joe Rogan. That endorsement, if it had come a little bit earlier, would have been tremendously powerful for his campaign. Joe Rogan, as you know, has millions of followers, and he's considered somewhat nonpartisan. It's not as if he's like a diehard Republican or anything. He wanted Kamala Harris to come on his podcast. She did not. So, Trump's, going to get some male votes thanks to Joe Rogan's, because that little capsule from where he endorses Trump is going viral. Now, in terms of confidence, both parties have to project confidence. I mean, that's the logical thing to do, isn't it? Kamala Harris's people are extremely confident that all of the ground game, all of the early voting, everything is showing in their favor. That women are breaking in their favor, Latinos in Pennsylvania are breaking in their favor, Puerto Ricans, whom you know that Donald Trump's campaign annoyed because they call this comic who called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. That has actually been very detrimental because they are in the key state of Pennsylvania, which both sides have to win to have an easy path to victory.
19 electoral votes straight, that adds up. Stay with me for just a moment. Ambassador Sibal, you were doing this SWOT analysis and you said for us what's more important, who's better for India? Does it make a difference whether it's Kamala Harris or it's Donald Trump? In your appreciation, who's better for India, sir?
Well, before that I answer that question, I listened to the feed that you played out, and I was very surprised, because Trump came out as very sober, very relaxed, very matter of fact. He exuded confidence. He was poised. I didn't detect any bluster, even in answer to difficult questions, whether he'll accept the election and this and that. He was very forthright on that point. He came out rather well. I thought that he might say things as he normally does, which might actually make you wonder whether he's fit for the presidency. But my appreciation is that he didn't say anything wrong. As regards your other question, I think it cuts both ways, in the sense, in some areas, the continuation of the Biden administration under Kamala Harris would be positive, because a lot was achieved with America during the Biden presidency. You are aware of so many agreements that have been signed, especially in the area of technology. It was remarkable that the National Security Advisor was leading this from the American side. And then, INDEX and, defense agreements, space agreements in the area of space, everything else. These are very solid achievements. Now, if Trump comes to power, one has to wonder whether his NSA would lead this process, or will he not lead the process, whether some of these things that were started would continue. There is also the economic agenda, which in the case of Trump can be more difficult to handle.
So the
light-hearted.
20% additional tariff that he's warning about, and I'll just get Seema to respond to that, and we'll take this conversation forward because it's getting very interesting. But I have Rohit, my colleague, who's joining me from Washington DC, and I quickly want to cut across to Rohit. Rohit, what are voters like? What's getting them to the polling station? Because in the end, if it's such a close election, I'm being told whoever gets more voters to vote at this time may just pull it off in the end. What are you picking up?
Gaurav, the fact of the matter is this is a very close election, very hard-fought election. President Trump said something that I've been also hearing from the battleground states of Michigan and Pennsylvania. His voters are coming out. They are coming out to vote in numbers, which I have also witnessed here in a Fairfax County, which is pretty blue. I'm not seeing a lot of Democrats come in. I spoke to the election commissioner here not too while ago, and I asked him about that. He obviously did not say that, but he said that they've received lesser number of mail-in ballots. So when I talked to a Democrat right here, they said Democrats are not showing up because they've mailed in ballots. But compare it to 2020 election, the Democrats, the numbers of mail-in ballots are down. So this definitely weaves into what Trump has been saying. He's getting a lot of support across the nation. I think he's probably getting the same report that we are on the ground. And look, when you talk about the states like Pennsylvania, where we've been there, we've done ground reporting, we've been to the door knocking campaign. It is a split. I think in the last 10 days, we've seen President Trump say something. We've also seen President Biden call the Trump supporters as garbage. So that will obviously play some role. But for the moment, from the ground, talking to a lot of people and campaign people on both the sides, it looks like Trump voters are coming and voting, and they're standing in line, and they are more dedicated to vote for Donald Trump. So what we heard him say, I think he came across as humble. He was nice. This is the first time he said, if I lose, that's fine. But I think he was trying to allude to the fact that, he's not going to lose this election. And I think from whatever he said about a lot of other things, he has been very disciplined. And that was his nature coming out in this campaign. Yes, as Seema said, he did come across as tired. But the fact is, Trump's leading as far as voter numbers are concerned on the voting day. Now, what happens with mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania? We'll have to wait and watch for it. But at least in numbers of voters who are getting out and standing in line for vote, it is advantage Trump right now.
And how soon will we know, Seema? And Rohit, stay with me if you can. I know you're traveling quite a bit, talking to a number of voters. Stay if you can. But Seema, how soon are we likely to know who has a clear edge? Or could it extend to days?
No, hopefully it won't extend to days. And by late tonight, our time, Tuesday night, we should have a sense, especially if some of the swing states that count early declare their results. So we'll get a sense of where things are going. Pennsylvania is going to take time because they have a complicated way of counting. They don't start counting the mail-in ballots till the voting is closed on that tonight. So it's going to take a while.
So that happens after 8 p.m. That happens after 8 p.m. In fact, I was just drawing that list out. Georgia, they say that they expect results fast, 80% in the first hour after 7 p.m. EST. And then within an hour after that, mostly all. North Carolina, 7:30, Michigan, 8, Pennsylvania, 8, mailing votes. Then Arizona, 9, Wisconsin, 9, Nevada, 10. Within an hour of that, would we have a clearer picture?
We hope to, unless there's some dispute and some, contestation. You remember last time it took 4 days for all the states to, to declare their votes. So we just have to wait and see. Hopefully it'll be smooth if everything, because they have put in a lot of reforms since 2020 to make the process smooth. I just... wanted to comment. I agree with Ambassador Sybil on what he said, that Trump came across as calm and collected. I wish he had done that over the past 2 days, because even last night at his rallies, he was calling immigrants savages and animals and things like that. So either it's a very clever, devilish strategy, which is that all that stuff resonates with his supporters, that, they hate immigrants, illegal immigrants especially, so much that it works. And now today, when everything is over, campaigning is over, he plays the cool, calm guy, confident. So, it could be that. But I'm struck that his message till the end was rather dark and,
that he'll make America great again. It's broken and he'll fix it. That's the message he's trying to give out throughout. But Ambassador Sybil, and both Seema, so one by one, the point that you were raising, more predictability with the Harris administration, unpredictable Trump administration is some of the apprehensions. 20% additional 20% tariff on Indian exports is an apprehension. But what about issues like, Ambassador Sybil, Citizenship Amendment Act or Jammu and Kashmir or India's internal affairs? Will the Harris administration interfere more compared to Trump?
Well, they could if they are determined to set the relations back. They could, or they could continue as before. I think if they go down the path which you are indicating, it'll create obstacles in the relationship, and many of the things that we did with the Biden administration would not move forward with the pace that we might want that to happen. You can never say whether the progressive wing will influence her more in that direction, but maybe not. It will also depend on who she chooses as the Secretary of the State, Secretary of Defense, and all the key positions, the NSA. You see, Kamala Harris, let's be very frank about it. She's not up to the job at all. At all. She's hollow, unprepared, inexperienced. She hides her incompetence and her lack of gravitas by just laughing away. That's what she does. She'll be totally guided by the people who put her in power, whether it is Barack Obama or his wife or Clinton or whatever else. She'll listen to, she'll be very insecure. Therefore, it'll all depend on who she chooses as her team. That is one aspect. The other is that even if Trump were to win, the kind of issues you have mentioned will not be raised by him. But the think tanks, the press, the New York Times, Washington Post, and what have you, they will carry on the same kind of attacks on India as before. So it's not as if we'll have under Trump, we'll have less of a problem with regard to attacks on India by these lobbies, except that it will not be Secretary of State like Blinken, who will, by releasing a report on religious freedom or human rights, actually for the first time in our relations with the United States, name India. So that sort of a thing will be there. But on the economic side, we have to watch what he does, because Lighthizer will have an important position, I think, in his administration, and he is an absolute hawk on these issues, and he'll give no quarter to India. But then again, let's see when they have to face the situation in practical terms and look at it in the larger canvas of their relationship with India, will they then make mistakes on the economic side of a kind that will push India away, especially if they have to deal with China. We can't accurately predict what might happen, but I think on the whole, we'll manage. On the whole, we'll manage with both Harris if she becomes president or Trump if he becomes president.
Okay, Seema, your appreciation. You heard Ambassador Sybil describe Kamala Harris. Do you agree with that assessment that, it'll be more of perhaps Barack Obama or the Clintons who will be guiding Kamala Harris or running the White House from the back? Is that your appreciation too? And on the aspects where will India face more trouble on issues like CA or Kashmir or Article 370?
So there's no question that there are a lot of people from the Obama-Clinton era who are active in her campaign and who kind of are influential. I wish there were more of the Biden people who were, the policy people that Biden has, who had more of a sway. So it would depend on who her national security advisor is. Most reports say that it'll be a person called Phil Gordon, who is her current NSA as vice president. Now, he's a European expert and a little bit of a Middle Eastern expert, but he has been advising her on Indo-Pacific issues. So we should be in a good place in terms of continuation of the Indo-Pacific policy. And External Affairs Minister Jaishankar met him when he was here most recently. In terms of Secretary of State, the name that I hear most is William Burns, who is the current director of the CIA. He's a former, as you know, senior State Department official. He knows India very well, and he's one of the best diplomats the Americans have. So if all that works out, fine. But there will be a lot of lobbying and jockeying and everything. I think India should not worry too much about, which issue will gain precedence and which not. Because by the time, if she wins and forms her cabinet, people will bring their perspectives to the table. Overarching issue for America, both parties recognize, is the rivalry with China. So I think that's not going anywhere. It's not as if, Harris has a different point of view on that. She has traveled to Asia, although she did not go to India, but she has traveled in Asia as vice president and was kind of involved in the dialogue with South Korea and things.
But
in
have
terms
relations
of Trump,
grown? Okay, have relations grown more with the Republicans compared to the Democrats, Ambassador Sibal? Though right from the Kargil War of 1999, the relationship has constantly been on the rise, irrespective of whether the Republicans were there or the Democrats. Your appreciation of does it make a difference whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats at all?
On the whole, not really. Not really. What we may lose, whatever the phrase is, what we may gain on the rounds, we may lose on the swings, that kind of a thing. I mean, there are aspects on which the Democrats would be better for us and also worse for us, and there are aspects where Trump would be better and also worse for us. So on the whole, as you rightly said, and as we've been pointing out before, we've dealt with 5 presidents in the past from different parties. And with each president, despite some misgivings here and there, relationship has continued to develop positively. And the curve has been going upwards. And now that India is growing, India's salience is becoming more important. The China challenge is now very severe for the United States. The entire international scene has become far more complex. India is in a good place in every way. Therefore, the value of India has gone up. Added to the fact is that India now is seen as some kind of a voice of the global South, which adds to our diplomatic clout, if you like. Our successes in the G20 and everything else have built up our reputation. And very importantly, the fact that we have perhaps the most experienced leader in Prime Minister Modi compared to the people who will gain power here and there, because this is his 3rd term. So he's already been 10 years in power. He has dealt with all these fellows. Very good personal chemistry with Trump. With Kamala Harris, it didn't really hit off that well. She never visited India, despite the fact that she was invited. But nevertheless, as I said, India's relevance is being recognized, his importance is being recognized, his economy is becoming attractive, it is becoming an investment destination. With all this talk about resilient and trusted supply chains, India has a role to play. So in this larger context, I think we can feel reasonably comfortable, but problems we'll have, and we will tackle them.
Problems will come, we'll tackle them on that heartening note of India's rise and America's elections. We are tracking the story very, very closely. Ambassador Sibal and Seema Sirohi, many thanks for joining me.